Hello, hello. I'm going to give everyone a chance to sort of get on here. You can say hi if you're there. Hopefully I can see the comments. We were having trouble last time with the video. There was a little glitch. So if you're here, say hi or throw a like on the video. Oh, I really hope I can see comments. No comments yet. Kelly, are you with us? You can see people joining. Just gonna give a few minutes for everyone to show up here. If you're just joining, let us know if you're sewing along or if you are just watching for later. Gather up all my supplies here. Oh, I still can't see comments. I'm really frustrated about that. Ooh, I can see my own comment. I can invite people. I can only send my friends invites. Okay, I'm not sure if the comments are going to work or not, but I'm going to start here. If Kelly is not already online, she should be joining us shortly. And if I can't see the comments, then maybe you guys, Kelly can help answer, or I will go back through. I'm so frustrated that the comments won't come up. We tested this earlier, but maybe it was just because it was in a smaller group that we tested it. So I'm sorry if I can't answer your questions again online. This is super duper frustrating. It says conversation starter 10 comments so far, but I can't see them. How frustrating. I'm sorry, guys. See if there's anything I can get to get it going. Alright, well, I guess we're just gonna have to go forward. I don't know what the deal is with the comments. It's frustrating. But I'm sure that Kelly will do a great job at answering questions. Oh, I just saw that Kelly joined. Kelly, I can't see comments, even though we tested before, so you'll have to do what you can to answer, and I will answer as best I can. Wondering if I can get my laptop down here so I can see questions. I might run up and do that. So I'll give you guys a sec. I'm just gonna run up and grab my laptop so I can see questions. I'll be right back. I just gotta get this bugger plugged in here. Or the battery dies. It's a very low battery. Knocked a bunch of stuff over. Alright. Sorry guys. Technical difficulties. I don't know why it will not show me the comments. So I will see if I can get it set up this way. If I had known this, I would have got this all set up. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to start and then I will get my computer all running up there. And I will look at your guys' questions. So, sorry for all the hoopla. I'm going to trip on my cord here likely, but I'll get that sorted out after. So, today we're going to be doing the new Floppy bunny with the floppy ears to hooping Stuffy. So, the first hoop is going to be our ears, and then those get attached to the bunny in our second hooping. And the advantage of doing a 2 hooping bunny is you get so much more space. So instead of having to have this whole bunny in one hoop, we're able to have 2 separate hoopings, which almost doubles the height of your bunny if you count the ears sticking up. So I'm going to do this guy's brother. So he's got the name on the ear, so I'll show you how I did that. And so I have added the name here. Here. So what you're going to need for supplies is you're going to need your main bunny fabric. So I have that here. I always cut my fabric 2 inches bigger than the size of the design to give you lots of leeway. So I'm doing the 5x7. So I cut my fabric 7 by 9 to give myself some space. If you're using a furry fabric, you're going to want some water-soluble stabilizer. And then I have the accent fabric that my customer chose for their bunny. So if you're just doing your own, you can pick whatever you like. So I have the bunny loaded. And I put the ears here. I'll show you on my screen. So there's the ear design, and I used my software to add in a letter. Some machines, I think you can do it on this machine. You can add it right on the machine, but I find it a lot easier to do it by doing it in my software. So I know it's all there and done, and I can see it. So we've loaded the ear design in, and we're just going to stitch out the placement stitch. So that's just going to show us where we're going to lay our fabric. There's my machine stitching on my computer. Turn this down. Okay, so we've gotten our placement stitch done. So I'm going to lay my fabric for one side of the ear. If you want to embroider the ear, you are going to want to have some water-soluble stabilizer if it's on the furry side. And it's not necessary if you're doing it on the cotton. So whichever side you want embroidered, you are going to put that down first. So we did it on the green minky because we had a busy print there. So I'm putting my green minky down. This one, for example, I did it on the printed side, so I put my printed side down. So whichever side you want your embroidery on, you're going to place that down. And then we're going to stitch the tack down stitch, which is just going to give your fabric, or attach your fabric to the stabilizer. Now I've got medium weight tearaway here. That's what I would suggest for the floppy eared bunny, so you can tear it away and you're not going to have your ears sticking out from having a thick cutaway stabilizer. Now I also did the same bunny and I cut down the ears, made them shorter and put them straight up, and those have cutaway in them to give them that sticking up stability. Okay, so now the design, I didn't reorder it in my software because it doesn't do that very easily. It's a pain. So this is the point where you're going to have to skip ahead to your writing if you want to add it to the ear. So before you put your second layer on, you need to have your personalizations done if you're going to do the ear. Not all of them have to have the ear. This one I did it on the belly and her ears are plain. You can do it on both ears or one ear or whichever. So I'm laying some water-soluble stabilizer down on top because it's a furry fabric. That will prevent the stitches from sinking in and it'll just give it a nice clean look. I guess it helps if you finish threading. So it gives it a much cleaner look and your stitches will look more consistent on the furry fabric. Sewing along, or are you just watching get the gist before you buy? My stomach has a nasty little cold, but it may be getting it. Trying to read through the comments. Last one, super old, not very fast. guys. You can just see my machine. I wish I could see you guys. That would be really cool. That would be a lot of pictures if there was a lot of people watching. So if you guys aren't wanting to watch the full video now, it will be posted on the group. So you can watch it anytime. You can refer back to it. If you're having troubles, if you're not watching it live, just tag one of the admins. So you can tag me, or you can tag Kelly, or you can tag Christina, or MC. We can all help you out as best we can. Okay, so I think I'm caught up to the comments there that have been done so far, and I'll try and watch out for if you have questions, and I know Kelly's there watching, and she can definitely answer any questions you have too. So with this file, you get 5 different sizes. So there's the 4x4, which is really tiny and so cute. I don't have any of my samples left. They were picked up the other day. But they fit in the palm of your hand. They're so sweet. And then we have the 5x7, which we're doing. The 6x10, which is this guy here. There's my hand. And the 7x12. And the 8x12, I believe. And you get 2 faces. You get the sleepy eye in both and the open eye in both. So it's really a good deal. It's on intro pricing through midnight Eastern Standard Time tonight. So make sure if you want to try that you get it. It's on for $6 on the website, so that's 40% off. So I'm done stitching my lettering. So that's on my ear. I always start my lettering from the bottom of the ear up. And then if you're doing it on the other ear, you'll want it to go the opposite way, so that it's not really upside down to me. So like this one, I did it on both ears. So on this one it goes from the bottom up, and on this one it goes from the top to the bottom. So the last number is on thing that needs to be trimmed there. The last number is near the bottom of the ear. So just depending on what you want to do. So now I've got to go back up to my final step in the actual design, which is going to finish out my ear. I tend to match my minky color. You don't have to. You really won't see the stitching, but you want to choose something that's coordinating in case it's peeking out just a bit. Okay, so I've got my accent fabric, which is the other side of my ear. You can use cotton, which is this. You can use flannel. You can use another minky color. You can do the same color. You can really let your imagination run wild with this. So you are going to place this fabric face down. So you have the right sides of the fabric facing each other. And you want to make sure that your fabric covers the lines of the placement stitch. And you want a little bit of extra room, because if it's right on that stitching, it will just fray away. I've cut my fabric probably just a touch too small, but I just used a scrap I had. So this is going to go around and stitch the outline of the ear except for the bottom, so we can turn our ear to the right way. And then all those seams will be hidden from view. Be nice and neat and pretty. spread that. To get them to stand up. Okay, so I cut them down to about half, probably. Just sort of play it by ear. I did another Stuffie that had up pointing ears before that was 2 things. So, where my ruler went. So this was the 6x10 guy, and his ears are about 5 inches tall. So I would say probably for the 5x7, it would probably be about maybe 3 inches tall. It was about half of what the ear was. Okay, so that is it for the ears. It's super fast. It was only 4,200 stitches, including my name, and the majority of that, over half of that, was the name portion of it. So if you're not doing a name, that should stitch up really quick. So we've just got the outline. It's got an open hole right here, so we can turn. So now for efficiency's sake, I'm just going to set this aside and get the bunny set up, and we'll finish these ears while our bunny is stitching. So that way we can save all our precious time. Find my other hoop here. So again, I have loaded up my medium tearaway on my hoop, and you can use cutaway for sure on this. I just used medium tearaway because it was fine. Oops. Delete off that ear. We don't want that there anymore. Change my hoop here. Probably do it in the other, but I just thought I'd save time hooping. Alright. Pull that down so you can see it better. Alright. So if you want to stitch the placement on your stabilizer, you can, and then just repeat that step. But I have a nice big hoop here. I don't have a 5x7 for this machine, so I'm just going to lay my fabric in the center. It's showing me it's starting up here, so I know I have lots of room. And then I like to put my water-soluble stabilizer on at this point to stitch my tack down. So that way it keeps everything out of the way. You don't have to worry about your water-soluble stabilizer crunching up and getting stuck on your needle and tearing your project apart. We've all been there, I'm sure, and it's super frustrating. So I'm just matching my color here, but you don't have to. This placement stitch is done outside the final outline, so it will not show in your final design. It is well out of the view, so whatever you have loaded is fine to save yourself time. Got mussed up a bit, but that's okay. So I've got my placement stitched. Now we're going to do the placement for the belly. So again, it's not going to be seen, so you can just stitch it in whatever color you've got going on. It's just showing us where to lay that applique fabric. Find my applique fabric. Now, if you're using a good quality woven cotton, it should be fine with the vintage stitch. Sometimes looser weaves will pull apart. I fuse a little bit of fusible stabilizer or interfacing on the back. I find it makes it just easier to lay flat and cut easier. People also use Heat and Bond Light to make sure it's the light kind. You don't want the ultra, it will gum up your machine. But it's not necessary to do. You just want to make sure on a vintage stitch that you're not cutting like really, really close to the applique outline, which I'll show you once I do. So I've got to get my colors changed here. So this tack down stitch is going to be viewable because it is a vintage stitch and not a straight satin stitch. The satin stitch is great, but it's heavy on stitching, and it doesn't, this sort of gives a nice little, like, why they call it a vintage stitch, a vintage look, and it's really cute. So these are for brothers, so I'm going to try and fussy cut my fabric so it's about the same. It's a pretty big fabric, and I had a hard time finding a good way to do it, that it still looked like a spaceship, so hopefully I succeeded. Hopefully they'll recognize that it is one. Okay, now I'm going to stitch the next step, which is the tack down for that fabric, which will keep our fabric where we want it so we can trim it. And you can stop and smooth if it gets out of whack, but again, I find the stabilizer really helps it stiffen it so it stays nice and flat and doesn't bubble, especially if you're using a really thin fabric, it tends to bubble. Looks like a bath. Yes, I do have a bath. It's a Creative 3.0 and I love it. I also have a P770, which is like my backup machine, and I usually am using them both at the same time, so it's good that I have it. Now my applique scissors. Okay, so before you cut, let me tell you again. You want to leave about a 1/4 inch around the egg part, not the little in cove here. There's satin stitching where the hands are, but for the egg outline, you don't want to cut it as close as you normally would for an applique with satin stitching. You want to have a little bit of leeway there. So I'm going to cut that out and then I'll show you again what I mean. Alright guys, I will get to your questions here. It's kind of, we're at a point where it's machine intensive, but we'll be doing the eyes and such very shortly, and that will take up a little bit of time where I can answer your questions. Okay, so I'll show you my cuts there. In camera there. So I've left a little bit wider, just a hair wider than you normally would, where here is cut right as close as you can. And then the bottom part I've left a little leeway. With a vintage stitch, you can always trim any little extra off after and you won't be able to see it, especially if you're using a minky. It will just hide in the pile. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that vintage stitch. I'm doing it in black. You can do it whatever color matches your fabric, or if you want to choose contrasting, you can really do any way. Bobbin thread low. Boo. Okay, I'm just going to let that run out, and then I'll change it. The machine tends to tell me way in advance, so I have like a quarter of a bobbin still on there. So it should be enough to stitch this step. I'm going to look at some of your questions here now. Sorry, I'm getting behind. The machine looks like it's a fast Creative 3.0. It's a pricier machine. I've had it for a while now. I think it was around $3,000 when I got it, but it could have been a little bit more than that. I can't remember, it's been so long, but it's a bit pricier compared to like a rocker, but it's great. And it's a great display. That's one thing that I hated with the Brother is it's got quite a terrible display on it, where this is completely HD quality. I love it. And I got it straight from my dealer, which I highly recommend, especially if you are new to embroidery. She taught me how to use the whole thing. Like, I never had any of those problems, and it was all calibrated from the start. And I bought the Brother online, and oh, it was torturous to get it set up. So I've got my vintage stitch done there, and I'm just going to change my bobbin so it doesn't run out in the middle of a step. I always say, I'm going to check my bobbin before I start, but then I never remember. Alright. Okay, now, the next step is to do the details on your hands. I've seen lots of people doing really pretty contrasting colors. I'm terrible for second guessing myself. I did a little red bunny nose on this guy, and I was like, oh, is this gonna look good? I know if I like it after it's done, but I'm so scared to try. And I see all these ones that you guys are doing, and they have beautiful contrasting colors, and I'm still scared to try them. I am having trouble with, oh, that's not threaded at all. I am having trouble with my thread cutter on this guy, but he's overdue for a service, so I really can't complain. He was supposed to go in at Christmas, and I just couldn't give it up around that time of year, and now it's Easter bunny season, so after Easter, it's like forever. Alright, so we're going to stitch out those the pants. So I've done that before when I want to fussy cut the pattern. So you can just cut separate pieces and do your ears. You can either separate them out in your software into different steps, or I have just taken them and once that first part has stitched, I stop my machine, cut my fabric, and then you can flip the other one around. So you totally can do it that way if you just are watching and stop it, or you can separate the steps out if you have software. Okay, so for getting the ears to stand up, I see that question there. I use a cutaway material, and that just gives it enough structure that it will stick up on its own. That was a learning process when I did some other ones. Reminds me, I should probably get my ears going here for it now. See if there's any more questions here that I've missed. Question that I missed, ask it again, and I think it'll pop up at the beginning of the comment so I can see. Okay, so, well, I'll wait till the next step. Get done on this one. So normally I would be giving her on my ears here, but of course when you're talking and answering questions, it's always going to take a bit longer to do something. I timed out when I did my last 5x7, and it took me just over half an hour to finish from start to beginning, including the stuffing and the closing, so it's really quick. I tend to do them factory style, where I'll just stitch a whole bunch out and I take them up, and while I'm watching TV at night I turn and stuff them and close them. So I'm, oh shoot, look at me, I shouldn't multitask late at night especially. So I'm doing the nose, which my software says do pink, and I put pink in, so I should pay more attention. So on this little bunny I'm doing a red nose. So let's take 2 on that guy. Okay, so ears. If you only have one hoop, you've probably already unhooped them, but I'm utilizing my hoops. So I've dehooped it. I'm just going to tear off as much of the stabilizer as I can. So for the floppy ears, you're going to want to use tearaway, because if you have too much structure inside because you use cutaway, they're probably going to stick out vertical. They just won't flop the way they're supposed to. Is this all in the hoop? Yes, it is all in the hoop, except it's going to have a small hole at the bottom that you're going to use to turn it, and then you'll stuff it by hand, and you will close it by hand. So it's maybe a 2-inch hole that you ladder or whip stitch closed. If you're using a big furry minky, you can just machine stitch it closed, because you won't be able to see. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got my nose done, and I'm going to go stitch my eyes and the whisker detail. Water soluble, it's a little wrinkled there. And I just pick away at my ears while I'm stitching. You can work on your sewing machine, you can work on your other machine if you have second machines. It's pretty no fuss until it gets to the last few steps. So you can make them out of cotton fabric. It's not as stretchy. You'll definitely want to cut some notches out, and you will want to zigzag the fabric or serge the fabric on the inside, or it will probably fray away over time. So I have done in the hoop bears with like men's shirts. I did one where it was like a memory bear from a grandfather that had passed. So I made a bear out of the cotton shirt, and it was in the hoop bear, and it was fine. I just zigzagged, so I didn't have a serger set up the edges to make sure that it didn't fray away. So while that ear is stitching, or the eyes are stitching out, I cut out the ear. I just do a rough cut, and then you want to make sure you leave a nice wide margin, especially if you're using a woven fabric. Now, I run a zigzag all the way around just for extra durability. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can use Heat Bond Light, or you can just cut your margins really wide, and you should be okay. You can top stitch your ear if you like. I'm just going to jump on my sewing machine here and give a zigzag, and I'll show you what I did when I'm done. talking this much. I have 4 kids and I'm at home with them. My husband works out west and they have no cell service where he's working, so we only talk online. So I don't talk very much in conversation all day. Just to my kids. We have conversations. They're not super long. So these clippers, is that the ones you mean? These ones actually came with my machine. They're a bath one, but I did get another pair because I lost my bath ones, but I found them after. They're super cheap and I love them. They're so nice for trimming threads. I just got this where I get the stabilizer from. I think they were $2.99, so I wanted to test them out, but the next time I buy them, I'm going to get like 3 more pairs because I'm always using them. She's on it. So I don't know if you can see how well you can see this, but I've just run a zigzag stitch on my cotton edging just to prevent fraying, and my bobbin thread ran out, so it didn't finish. Running out of bobbin thread all over the place here. Well, at least now I know that I have to set up my laptop before I start if we're doing another video. That it won't let me see it. I'm not sure. Too many comments for it to process. Here, finish this ear. I just like it. I'm paranoid about stuff falling apart, especially kid stuff. And I mean, you have to charge a lot to make it worth it for your time if you're making things to sell. And if you're just making things for loved ones, you don't want them to fall apart on them. I know I'm probably super overkill when it comes to stuff like this, but that's okay. Better to be over than under, I guess. Alright, so now we're just going to do the white of the eye. We're almost done. Getting to the tricky part. Well, it's not tricky, just different. Okay, so I've got both my ears zigzagged, and I'm going to take them and turn them out, inside out. A lot of people like hemostats. I personally like a dowel. I just sort of stick my dowel in and keep working from either side to push that through. It's hard to stay in camera. I usually put it between my legs and push it against the chair. Okay, so we just have one more little detail to stitch, and that's your little bunny feet, which I'm doing in red to match my nose, which is kind of odd, but so is a lime green bunny. So I'm just coordinating with the red color of the embroidery, which was asked for. The belly is an egg. It kind of looks like an oval too, so you can really play it off as either if you wanted. Just getting this ear pushed out. out with my dowel inside, and I just find that super helpful to help you turn. Is anybody sewing along, or are you guys just watching? Alright, so we're still stitching that bottom piece, so I'm going to talk about the ears again. I've got both of them turned. Now, you can just leave them flat like this, put them in on the placement so they just flip up or not. I like to give them a little bit more dimension, so what I do is I fold them in half, almost in half. So you can see where my stitching is there for my placement. That's where we want it about. And I'm going to fold it in half so it's just almost in half, so the ears are peeking out. And you want to make sure you do one each way. So if you're folding it like that, you want to point them in each direction and make sure one's going one way and one's going the other way with a little bit peeking out. Now you can pin that. I'm going to zigzag stitch it, which will take care of that fraying there if necessary, and it also just makes it easier and you don't have to worry about pins getting in the way. Okay, so I'm going to do my placement for my ears right now. Again, it's outside the stitching, so you don't have to worry about what color it is. I find a contrasting color helps so you can see where it is rather than something matching. Give me a second here while I finish up these bad boys. Already, normally they'd be ready and waiting, but I'm chatting and answering questions, so I'm slow. Okay, so I've just taken them, and I've got two of them, and I've got them, ooh, get both in here, zigzagged on opposite sides. And I just realized I've done it on the wrong one for this one. So this is supposed to go on this ear to match. So I'm going to have to rip that out. Pay attention. If you guys, what size lettering did you use for the ears? I have a font program that generates fonts. It's called Quick Fonts. It's a fast software with 5D is what I have. They don't even make that anymore, I don't think. I can't even remember what it's upgraded to. It went to 60 and then it went to something else. But anyways, I use Quick Fonts. So I just maximized the size. I want to say it was 14 or 15 millimeter, but I'm not sure. And it's going to depend on the size bunny that you use, but I can double check that on the computer to see what will fit. I messed around it. I mean, it auto digitizes the size, and I think I adjusted the height, so it's a useful software to have, but it doesn't help with your question very much. But maybe someone else that's done them with a purchased font could let you know. But I would say probably 1/2 inch font on the 5x7, but that's guessing. Never even thought about sewing these the wrong way. I'm silly. It wouldn't matter if I wasn't, if it wasn't a matching set, but it's for brothers, so I really should make them look the same. So sorry, I'm slow here. Does he have a tail? No, he doesn't have a tail, but you certainly could just hand stitch one on the back very easily. You could use a pom-pom or a little yo-yo, or just, I think a yo-yo would be really cute. Made out of your minky fabric, and then you can just whip stitch it on in the back. That would be really sweet. I never even thought of that. That's a good idea. Missed the beginning. What are you seeing this on. Sorry, Sherry, I don't understand your question. Can you elaborate a little bit? Just watching and excited. What machine do you have, Judy? Oh, stitch ribbers. I have a love-hate relationship with stitch ribbers. They're no fun. Confused on the ear folding. Okay, I'll do the ear folding again. Again, it's not something you have to do, Cheryl, but I will elaborate as soon as I get these stitches ripped out. Again, the ear folding is not something you have to do. You can just do it flat. I just like the dimension that it gives you with the folding, but it's totally up to you. It looks really cute. I saw somebody posted one that they didn't fold ears and it looked really cute, so it's really up to you. So I've got that mostly ripped out enough that I can do it. So if you don't want to fold your ears, you totally don't have to. You can just put them in as is and stitch them down. So then on your bunny, it will just look like that. So just be flat. Whereas this guy, he's got them folded in and it just gives it a bit more dimension. But they both look cute. Like I said, I saw one earlier that had just the flat, flappy ear. And that's how it would look with the flat, flappy ear. So again, for the folding, which I'm doing to match, I have my two ears that are going to be here and here. So I want to fold them almost in half. Okay, so we're folding almost in half. And then I'm going to stitch those down. So I have that on the right side this time. This is slowing me way down. Haste makes waste. So the truth, yeah, I'm still always rushing through stuff. So Judy, you have a brother. I have the 770 as well. It's a great little machine, especially for the price, but it is a lot less fancy, I should say, than the Fath. So, okay, now back again. I've got my ears folded the right way now. So you want to point them in two different directions because they're being pointed on the other direction. And when you fold almost in half, you want the black peeking out to the front for each of them. Or the inside fabric peeking out to the front. I've sewn my zigzag right above that placement stitch, so I know where to put it. So now, this can be the most difficult part, just figuring out where to put the ears more than anything, I find. Because you kind of have to think of it in 3D. So I will show you, I can do it now without thinking about it, but I will show you my thought process in case that doesn't, in case you can't just visualize it, which I usually can't. I've just done enough of them now. So the way I do it is I hold my ears the way that they should be, with the minky on the top and the pattern fabric on the inside. Now this isn't how we're going to stitch them down, because we want to have the raw edges on the inside of the bunny, which will be the outside of the stitch line, because all this stuff in here is going to be inside the stuffy. So you've got your ear placement there. This is how I want it to stay, so it will end up like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip it right over. So you want your raw edge facing out, and you want your ear coming in towards the bunny. Okay, you want your inside of the ear to be facing the bottom, and the outside of your ear to be on top. So if you weren't folding it, it would just look like that. It would just be flat down, but I have mine folded, but we still want to do that. Okay, and then this guy, same thing. We have our ear place. Low battery, I'm gonna have to run up and get my charger. Did that make my thing go away? Close. Okay, I'm gonna have to run up and get my charger. When my battery was full, I charged it before we started. It used a lot of energy. Just one sec. All kinds of technical difficulties tonight. Okay, plugged in here, sorry. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that didn't get you going wrong here. My computer's slow loading. Apparently I restarted my machine too somehow. Disaster. My video back up. Did you zigzag on the outer stitching of the ear or off to the left of it? Did you zigzag on the outer stitching of the ear or off to the left of it? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Sharon. Do you mean before I turned it? If so, I did the zigzag outside the stitching, and then I did the zigzag here outside my placement stitch. It's hard to see. My placement stitch is right there. And then I did the zigzag stitching out there. On my ear, I did the zigzag outside the embroidery stitching. So I went all the way around the ear on the outside of the stitching. So let me know if that didn't answer what you meant there. So, okay, I think I got all the questions again. Okay, now I gotta realign this bugger. I think I centered it when I brought it down. That's the benefit of centering your design. If you know where it is and something terrible like the power goes out happens, then you're good. Alright, put that guy back on the loop. I'm just going to test stitch my my ear placements again, just to make sure I'm in the same spot as I was, which I'm pretty sure I am. Yep, Okay. Sorry about that. Cell phone, embroidery machine. Technology is beautiful when it keeps working, eh? It's when it doesn't work that it makes you want to throw your stuff out the window. I think that's a common phrase in embroidery. I know I've been there. Okay, so ear placement again. So we want to make sure we place it so our furry fabric is on top and our pattern fabric is on down. And then we're going to flip it over so it's inside the bunny. So we want to make sure that the stitching is right around where that placement stitching is. If you zigzag it, you want the zigzag outside, so beyond the stitching. Okay, and I'll sit down for this part so I can get a good thing. So we've got our outside ear fabric, our furry fabric, our main fabric on the top, pattern fabric facing down, and if you're folding, you want the folds facing out so it opens to the outside. We got the fold line here and it opens the outside. So hopefully that makes sense. So what you want to do is you want to make sure your ear is just underneath that foot. You don't want your foot to get all tangled up in that ear part. That's probably the most dangerous part or the most nerve-wracking part is if it gets all tangled up. Your needle will likely break and it's no fun for anyone. So you want to make sure it's underneath your needle and it's not like here where your needle comes down in front of it. You want your needle to come down just on the edge of it. Okay, so I don't know, I'm going to pull you closer so you can see what I mean there. Okay, so you can see how my needle is going to come down on top of the ear. You don't want your needle to come down in front because that could cause major tangles there. So if your machine slows down, if you have, that seems really blurry there. There, that's better. Okay, so if you're using a super furry fabric, I would suggest another layer of water-soluble stabilizer over top of that, just to keep it from tangling up in your fur. And so you can see what you're doing more than anything. So I've got my ear placed down there. My needle is going to go down there. If you can slow down your machine, I suggest that you do it at this point. So that way, if you have a mistake or it's not working out right, you have a better chance of catching it. Now you can tape this down. I'm terrible for doing stuff like that. I'm just going to hold it here while it starts stitching. I also keep my hand on the button for the start stop in case there is any tangle going around. You're able to stop your machine and hopefully get your needle stopped before it breaks. So, as you don't want to tangle. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and it's going to do the stitch placement on that ear. And it's broken up into two, so you don't have to worry about keeping both ears out of the way. You also want to keep that ear pushed down until your needle moves over there, so that way it's not going to get caught up in that fabric. So, okay, so we've got one ear basted in place there, so it's going to stay where we need it. And we're going to come down to the other one. So same thing, we sort of put it where we want it and flip it exactly over into our bunny. We want our needle to come down into the fabric. Okay. Gently keeping my ear down. I'm not putting pressure, I'm just keeping it where it was, just like if you were going to sew. And again, we want to keep that placed down. It's going to jump now to the bottom. So you want to just keep those ears out of the way. So we've got, show you here, our ears basted on. You can sort of check them by pulling them out. Say, okay, that's what they're going to look like. That's about right. So hopefully that's clear on the ears. I know that's probably If you've never done a two hooping stuffy, that's probably the scariest part for trying to figure out how it goes. So we are almost done. We just have to do our final stitch it, our outline. Now, if you are going to add the name, this is where you'd want to do it, or at some point before this. Before you put your final backing on, you need to skip ahead to where you've added the name, or reorder your software and get your name embroidered on your belly, or whatever you would like on your belly, if that's what you want. Again, we're using a really busy fabric, so we opted for the ear on the minky side instead. Oh, I have to get some water. Okay, so we're almost done. Now, you want your ears sort of placed down. Now, when I do in the hoop stuffies, I find it easier to sort of push them aside. We're starting down here, and I'm going to keep them out of the way until I get to stitching down the ear. I just find it's a lot easier, but you can take them and just make sure they're inside that stitchman line. You can tape them down. I use painter's tape a lot if I'm doing that, but I find stopping and pulling stuff out is just a lot easier for me, but you'll find what works best for you. So we're just on the very final step. I'm just going to double check if there's any questions. What machine am I using? It's a Fast Creative 3.0. Everybody likes my machine today. I think that's everything. Kelly thinks it's funny that I clean my lens. I can't be blurry, bunny. My phone's so dirty. I have an 18-month-old, and literally anytime I go to do anything, she goes looking for my phone. And she usually has yogurt or oatmeal or something on her hands because she's an 18-month-old. And she's dirty all the time, so it's literally always covered in crap. So, but life of a mom. I can't wear good clothes because I have little toddler fingerprints all over. So like I said, I just sort of have my ears thrown up to the top here. It just, to me, makes it easier to have your fabric nice and flat when you're sewing that first step. So I forgot to say, but you put your fabric face down, so you have your two right sides facing together. So we got our backing on upside down with our furry side down. So it's going to do around the curve of the neck, which is what we're doing here. And we're getting kind of close to the ear, so I'm going to stop my machine. And I'm going to get that first ear in place. And again, I'm just going to smooth out my fabric. And again, for this part, I just want to make sure that nothing gets caught up. Sometimes the foot will catch on things, so I'm just going to slowly, as my machine slowed down to about half speed. And I'm just going to stop and take my time and smooth things out. And we're going over that first ear now. Okay, and now we're getting to the second ear. So I'm just going to push this ear over and place this guy in place. And then I'm just keeping my fabric flat, keeping my ear pushed down. And I keep my finger on that pause button so I can stop whenever it wrinkles or when it's going up a bit and just might need a little help to get over that snag. It's quite a jump in the height, especially if you folded your ears. Oh, my thread just did something wonky there. I don't know what it did. Caught on something. I'm just going to back up a bit. Just make sure that's secure. I don't know what it did. I thought it was going to break, but it didn't. Might have been on the verge of breaking. You want to to make sure you keep your fingers away, and that's the advantage of slowing down your machine, especially if you've got like a multi-needle or something super fast. I mean, this is fast-ish, but nothing like a multi-needle. You can stop. You can even push those ears up a little bit just to make sure that they don't get caught in the bottom of your outline, and it just helps to keep this fabric a lot flatter than if you're just lay it on. And that's why I like to give a good 2 inches on either side. There's lots of room there, but if you place your fabric a little too far on one side, it gives you a little bit of leeway, because you don't want to do all this work and then find your backing's not big enough and you have to tear a bunch of stuff out. So it's going to recenter back to the center there and probably catch. Stick there. I have seen people or even designers add a little X or a dot near the bottom that you don't actually stitch, but it just prevents it from centering, because the center can tend to be a little bulky. That's why I usually push those ears way up in that head, but I didn't push them in quite as far as normal. So that's all that we have here for on the machine. So we're going to de-hoop, and we're going to tear off our stabilizer. I'm also going to tear off the outside edge of the water-soluble stabilizer here. I just find it easier to get a good grip on the big pieces rather than giving it a cut. And then trying to pull out those minuscule little pieces. Excuse me, my throat's dry. I'm talking too much. It's a one-sided conversation. Alright, so I have my ear. You can cut all this excess away. I'm never going to use little tiny scraps like this with Minky, so I don't bother. I just let it be extra stuffing, and then you're saving on your stuffing. One thing you are going to want to do is there's a little in-cove here, and if you don't cut that away a bit, then you are going to, it's just not going to turn properly. So you want to cut in towards that little in-cove, but you don't want to cut the stitches. So we've just cut to the stitches, and then you can do a couple more there if you want to, but really the one, just to free up the movement of that seam. So on both sides, I'm cutting just at that neck hole. The rest of them really shouldn't matter. You can notch it a bit more if you want, but for a material with stretch, it should be fine. But cat's going nuts up there. I fed them good food tonight. They've been fussy over their foods, and they like the food that I opened the new bag of today. It's like different bags of the same food they don't like. So if you're using cotton, you'd want to do a little bit more notching than that, and you'd want to zigzag it also to make sure it's good. So you can tear away all this extra tear away too if you like. I've got all my bobbin threads in the way there. But you can pull all that out, or it should be fine with it, and it'll disintegrate over time as it's washed. So now turning, we've got our little hole on the bottom. I reach in there and grab. Hemostats can help for this. I grab my ears, and that's the easiest way I find to turn. Trying to check for questions too. Okay, so I've got my ears out through that hole, and then I'm just going to work the machine. Again, you can use a dowel to sort of push it through if you need, and a lot of people swear by hemostats. I bought a pair, and I don't care about them. Just, I'm used to using a dowel, and I'm stuck in my old ways. So to push out the bunny, I'm just going to stick a dowel in the hole, and then I can just use that to push out all my pieces. we've got our cute little bunny. So you still got the water-soluble stabilizer that I've got to tear out. If you have kids, mine love to pull it out. They fight over it. So I can often give that to my daughter, especially, well, my older daughter. My 4-year-old really likes to pull it out, so you can pull all that away. I don't know if I have any stuffing down here. I think I took it upstairs. Oh, there's the bag. So you can use whatever to stuff, really. Different people have different ideas. I have like a massive bag of polyester stuffing, so I make a lot of stuffies and sock monkeys, so I use those for stuffing. So my giant bags that I... So to stuff, I just shove my stuffing in slowly, quickly as I can, but you just kind of gotta be patient, and you want to make sure you get it in those cheeks so they're filled out before you stuff the body. And when you're closing, you can use a ladder stitch or whip stitch. I just match my color thread to whatever my minky fabric is, and that's the benefit of using minky, is it's very forgiving, and it doesn't really show too much. There's tons of YouTube videos out there. If you don't know how to ladder stitch or whip stitch, either will work. Whip stitching is probably a little easier if you're a beginner, and it's not going to matter if you're using minky. You'll be able to see it if you were using like a cotton or a woven of some sort, or something that wasn't furry, even maybe fleece. You could see it a little bit, but lost my thoughts there. Yeah, but it's really easy. Anyways, I won't pull all that stabilizer off while you're there, but that's how he finishes out there. So we got a cute little Easter set of the two guys, their little name on it. So hopefully, if you guys haven't done a 2-hooping stuffy, that has alleviated your fears. They kind of look intimidating to start, but they really are not tough. The hardest thing is orienting the ears the way that they're supposed to be, and just sort of imagining them, how they're flipped. So hopefully I was clear on that, but if you need any help, you can send me a screenshot. I can tell you if it looks right to me. So if you have any questions, you can let me know. Reading here. This is the 5x7 bunny. I have the other sizes there. I don't know if you can see together. This is the 6x10 guy there. I don't have a 4x4 on me right now. All my 4x4s have been picked up. So this guy is on intro pricing until midnight Eastern Standard Time. So it's 9:21. So it's 8:21 there. So you've got about 3.5 hours to grab it at 40% off. And you get the 5 different sizes. So from 4x4 up to 8x12. So a wide range of hoops. 5x7 is my most popular size. So if you're worried about being limited by your hoop size, I have an 8x10 hoop. I think I can fit the 7x12 and almost the 8x10. 12. I could size down the 8x12 to fill my hoop. It was just, I think the 8x12 was just a little too big for my 8x10 hoop. But if you're worried that, oh, I only have a 5x7, that's definitely my most popular size that's ordered. Most people get that size, even though I have the bigger sizes available. That's the size that they're choosing to get. So And the 4x4s are cute as anything. I get lots of orders for 4x4. They're probably my second most popular size. So with the 2 hooping stuffies, they're not itty bitty tiny when you're doing the 5x7. I mean, that's a good sized bunny, and it looks perfect in a little Easter basket. So it's a great size. What kind of prices do you charge for the 5x7? I charge for a 2 hooping 5x7. I charge $20, and I include the name in that. I don't think I've ever had one ordered that did not have a name on it. So if I'm doing a sample that I don't have a name for, I will like put them on a sample sale later for people to buy. But 99% of my customers want them personalized. That's why you're paying for the handcrafted items, is so you can personalize them, especially if you have different names. Like, I don't even know how to pronounce this name, Kaislier. So I doubt you'd find that on anything in a store. So once I end this video, you'll be able to watch the video from the start. I think when it's live, you can only watch where we're at live, but I think you can go back and watch it once I end this, and it'll be posted in the group. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We love to help out. We're happy to help. I know it can be scary to start. I know I was very intimidated to try these things when I first started, and now they feel so easy and so second nature. So if you have questions, we're more than happy to help you out. So I think I have all your questions, but feel free to answer. Feel free to ask, and I will answer anything. If I missed anything, please ask again. I was talking about the sizes of the bunnies also, but you do get the 2 eye styles as well. This is a 5x7, and I did her ears, and she's got the little sleepy eyes. So she's super cute. I love this one. It's one of my favorite ones ever. The pattern does come in all sizes. It comes in 4x4, 5x7, 6x10, 7x12, and 8x12, I believe, are all the sizes, but it should say on the listing. And you get your intro pricing at, it's only $6, and you get 5 sizes, 2 different eye size, and you can also vary the ear. Like this guy, if you guys didn't see this earlier, I just cut my ears down. I will try and remember to write my measurements down for each of my ears for the different sizes. I haven't done the 4x4 yet, but I did a 5x7, and I did this 6x10 guy with the pointy up ears, which makes your Stuffie even bigger. Like, these are the same size. Get back far enough here. These are the same size, but he seems bigger because he's got the pointy ears. So it's really versatile that you can change all these features up, and you can add your embroidery to the ear, to the belly, and do your different aisle styles. So, did you pre-wash your fabrics? I did not pre-wash my Minky. It's a polyester material. You're not going to have to worry about shrinkage there. I don't pre-wash my cottons or flannels. I steam them though. So if there is going to be any shrinkage, you're going to get that shrinkage in the heat. So I always make sure that I use a good steam iron and give all my woven fabrics a really good steaming. So, all right. So I think I've gotten all your questions. Ask if you have questions after, and you can start and watch the video. The video will be in the video sections of the group for the foreseeable future. And please post your bunnies. I want to see them. I love to see all the different variations, and I know Kelly loves to see her designs stitched out. So we'd love to see them stitched out in the group. So please let us see what you came up with in your fabric combinations. It's time for me to go to bed, I think. All right, so have a good night, guys, and thank you for joining, and hopefully we'll be doing some more videos soon. Good night.